The great chamber of Andromeda Station stretched so far that Minho could barely see the opposite wall. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats, their eyes watching him with cold judgment. He stood alone at the center, wearing his crisp blue admiral uniform. The weight of representing all humanity pressed on his shoulders. Above him, the council leader spoke. The creature had 6 arms and skin like purple crystal. Its voice boomed through translation devices. Admiral Minho of Earth, you stand here to receive our final decision. Minho kept his face calm. He had known this moment would come. For months, the council had debated what to do about humanity. They called humans too aggressive, too quick to build weapons, too eager to explore and expand. The Galactic Council has voted, the leader continued. 847 members vote to exile humanity from civilized space. Only 3 vote against. The chamber erupted in alien sounds. Some were cheers. Others were strange clicks and whistles. Minho felt his heart sink, but he did not let it show. The leader raised one hand for silence. Humanity has 50 years to leave all colonies within Council territory. You will retreat beyond the Perseus Arm. You will not return. This is our mercy. We could have chosen war. Minho stepped forward. And what crime have we committed? Building our homes? Protecting our people? Seeking new worlds? You move too fast, another council member said. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. In 300 years, you spread to 100 worlds. It took my people 3,000 years to do the same. You are chaos. You threaten the order we have built over millions of years. We threaten nothing but your comfort, Minho replied. His voice was steady but hard. You fear change. You fear that we dare to dream bigger than you do. The purple crystal being slammed a gavel. The decision is final. 50 years. Then any human found in council space will face destruction. Take your people and go. Minho looked around the chamber one last time. He saw the faces of species that humanity had once called friends. Now they looked away. Only the 3 who voted against exile met his eyes. They looked sad, but they were too few to matter. We will remember this, Minho said quietly. Then he turned and walked out. 3 months later, Captain Taiho stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Dawn. Behind his vessel, 12 more ships followed in formation. They carried 3 million people, everything they could take from the colony of New Bristol. Status report, Taiho said to his crew. All ships report ready for jump, his first officer replied. Destination is Kepler system, Dark Frontier Zone. Taiho looked at the view screen. The planet New Bristol hung there, green and beautiful. His daughter had been born there. He had planned to retire there. Now they were leaving forever. Captain, we are receiving a message from the planet, the communications officer said. It is Yuna, the colonial governor. The screen changed. Yuna appeared, her face tired but determined. She was older than Taiho, with gray in her hair, but her eyes still burned with fire. Captain Taiho, this is the last group, she said. Everyone is evacuated. New Bristol is empty of human life. Understood, Governor. What about you? I will take the last shuttle up in 1 hour. I wanted to stay until every single person was safe. She paused. The council ships are already moving in. They will claim this world for themselves before the day is over. Taiho felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. We built that colony with our own hands. Every building, every farm, every road. Yes, Yuna said. And we will build again. The council thinks they have defeated us. They think exile will break our spirit. They are wrong. In another ship, far from the bridge, a scientist named Hana worked in her laboratory. She did not watch the planet disappear. She did not cry for what was lost. Instead, she focused on her work. Hana was studying a new type of engine design. The council used old technology that had not changed in 10,000 years. They saw no reason to improve. But Hannah saw 1,000 ways to make things better. They will regret this, she whispered to herself as she made notes. They exile us to the dark. We will light it up with stars of our own making. Around her, other scientists worked. They were young, most of them, born in space or on colony worlds. They had never seen Earth, but they all shared the same fire that burned in Hana. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. New Bristol vanished behind them. Ahead lay the dark frontier, the part of space the Council had never bothered to explore. It was dangerous, unknown. Perfect. Mayho watched from his own ship, a military vessel escorting the colonists. He was old now, and this would be his last tour of duty. After this, he would retire. But he would not rest. He had already made plans. Plans for academies to train new officers. Plans for shipyards to build better vessels. Plans to make sure that when humanity saw the Council again, it would be as equals. Or as superiors. The exile had begun. The Council thought they had won. They had made their first and greatest mistake. They had given humanity something to prove, and humanity always rose to a challenge. 50 years had passed since the exile. The old Admiral Minho was dead now, buried on the first colony world humanity had built in the dark frontier. But his dream lived on. One Ho stood at the viewing window of Genesis Station and watched the shipyards at work. He was Supreme Commander now, the highest military position in the Terran Coalition. What he saw before him made his chest swell with pride. Hundreds of construction frames hung in space, each one building a new warship. Robot workers and human crews moved between them like bees in a hive. Sparks from welding torches lit up the darkness. Ships took shape, growing larger day by day. Commander Wanho, a voice said behind him. He turned to see Ji-Wan, the chief engineer of the station. She was young, barely 30, but brilliant beyond measure. The new engine design is ready for testing. Wanho followed her to the research lab. On a platform in the center sat a device no bigger than a car, but it glowed with contained energy. This is the Mark 7 FTL drive, Ji-Wan explained. Her eyes shone with excitement. It is 3 times faster than anything the Council uses. And it uses half the fuel. How is that possible? Wanho asked. He was a military man, not a scientist, but even he understood how important this was. The Council stopped innovating 10,000 years ago, Ji-Wan said. They found technology that worked, and they never improved it. But we kept asking questions. We kept experimenting. We used artificial intelligence to run millions of simulations. We found better ways. Wanho smiled. When can we install these in our ships? Production starts next month. In 2 years, every ship in our fleet will be faster than anything the Council has ever seen. Later that day, Wanho met with the Colonial Council. Representatives from 200 human worlds gathered in the meeting hall. Soman, the head of Colonial Affairs, gave her report. Our population has reached 80 billion people, she announced. We have colonies in 53 star systems. Food production is at 112% of needs. We are not just surviving. We are thriving. The representatives applauded. Wanho stood to speak next. My friends, when we were exiled, the Council thought they were punishing us. Instead, they gave us freedom. Freedom from their rules. Freedom from their fear of progress. We have used these 50 years wisely. He activated a holographic display. It showed the Terran Coalition territory, glowing blue against the dark background of space. We now have 500 warships. Not cargo vessels or colony ships. True warships built for one purpose: to protect what is ours. He paused. We also have something else. Something the Council will never understand. What is that? Someone asked. Unity, Wanho said simply. The council is made of 1,000 species, each with their own goals. They argue and scheme against each other. We are one people, one purpose. That makes us stronger than all of them. In the Terran Naval Academy on the planet Horizon, a young woman named Nari completed her final training exercise. She sat in the cockpit of a fighter craft, breathing hard. Sweat ran down her face. "Exercise complete," the instructor's voice said in her ear. "Perfect score, Cadet Nari. Congratulations." Nari pulled off her helmet and grinned. She had trained for 3 years for this moment. Now she would receive her wings, become a real pilot in the Terran Defense Fleet. The instructor met her as she climbed out of the simulator. He was an older man with scars on his face from real combat, back in the early days when pirates had tested the new human colonies. "You have talent," he told her. "Natural instinct. But talent alone is not enough. Do you know why we train so hard?" "To protect our people, sir," Nari replied. "Yes, but also to be ready. The council exiled us, but they did not forget us. One day, they will look our way again. When that day comes, we must be ready to show them what we have become." Nari nodded. She had heard the stories from her grandparents. Stories of the exile, of the long journey to the dark frontier, of the hard years building new homes on empty worlds. She would not let their sacrifice be wasted. In the deep mines of Kepler-7, workers extracted rare elements that the council had never discovered. These materials made the new ships possible, made the new weapons possible, made everything possible. Teho, the old captain who had led the evacuation of New Bristol, now served as president of the Terran Coalition. He visited the mines to see the work himself. "How much do we have?" he asked the mine supervisor. "Enough to build 10,000 ships," the supervisor replied. "And there are 6 more deposits like this in other systems." The council never explored the dark frontier. They were too afraid. They missed all of this. Taiho laughed. "Their loss is our gain." That evening, Taiho gave a speech to the nation. His face appeared on screens across 200 worlds. "My fellow humans, we were cast out. Told we were not good enough to stand among the council races. Told we were too dangerous, too unpredictable." They meant it as an insult. I take it as a compliment. People cheered in homes and bars and public squares across human space. We are dangerous to them because we dare to dream. We are unpredictable because we refuse to stagnate. In 50 years, we have built an empire that rivals anything in the galaxy. We have done this through hard work, through innovation, through never giving up. He paused, his voice growing harder. The council thinks we have forgotten them. They are wrong. We remember every insult, every injustice. And when the time comes, when they finally see what we have built, they will understand their mistake. They did not exile us. They freed us to become something greater than they ever imagined. The cheering continued long after the speech ended. Across human space, people looked up at the stars with pride. They had been thrown into the darkness, and they had conquered it. The Terran Coalition was strong, growing stronger every day. The Council would learn soon enough. Humanity was not going quietly into exile. They were building an empire. The Council patrol ship Eternal Vigilance drifted through space, its crew bored. Commander Kelrix had been chasing pirates for 3 weeks with nothing to show for it. The criminals had fled toward the edge of Council space, toward the region the old map still labeled as the Dark Frontier. "Sir, we are approaching the restricted zone," his navigator said. The navigator was young, barely trained. Most experienced officers refused to serve on patrol duty this far from civilization. Restricted by whom? Kelrix grumbled. That exile order is over a century old. The humans are probably extinct by now, or eating each other in caves somewhere. He ordered the ship forward. They were chasing pirates. That gave them authority to go anywhere. 2 hours later, their sensors started screaming. Contact. The scanner officer shouted. Large vessel, bearing 3 to 7. It just appeared out of nowhere. Impossible, Kelrick said. Our sensors reach a light year in all directions. Nothing can surprise us. But something had. On the view screen, a ship appeared that made Kelrick's blood run cold. It was massive. At least twice the size of his patrol ship, maybe 3 times. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to shrug off any weapon the Eternal Vigilance carried. Gun ports lined its sides, dozens of them. The design was unlike anything in Council records. Unidentified vessel. This is Fleet Admiral Junho of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have entered Terran space without permission. State your intentions. Kelrick struggled to find words. Terran? That was the human word for Earth. But humans had been exiled. They should not have ships like this. They should not have fleets or admirals. This is Commander Kelrick of the Galactic Council patrol ship, Eternal Vigilance. We are pursuing criminals. We mean no harm to anyone in this region. A pause. Then the human ship moved closer. It was fast, much faster than any Council vessel. Within minutes, it had positioned itself directly in front of them, blocking their path. The Galactic Council has no authority here, Junho's voice said. You will turn around and leave immediately. I demand to speak to your superior, Kelrick said, trying to sound confident. This is Council space. It has been for 10,000 years. Not anymore. Another image appeared on screen. This time, it was a human face. The man was old, very old, with white hair and deep wrinkles. But his eyes were sharp and clear. Kelrick felt he had seen this face before in old records. My name is Minho, the old man said. I was the admiral who stood before your council 105 years ago when you exiled my people. I serve now as advisor to President Taiho, and I am telling you the same thing Admiral Junho told you. Leave, now. Kelrick felt shock run through him. This human should be dead. The lifespan of humans was barely a century, according to old records. How are you still alive? He asked without thinking. Minho smiled. It was not a kind smile. We improved ourselves, just like we improved everything else. While your people sat in comfort, never changing, never growing, we pushed forward. We had to. You gave us no choice. I need to report this, Kelrick said. Yes, you do, Minho agreed. Go back to your council. Tell them what you found here. Tell them the humans they threw away have built something magnificent. Tell them we do not forgive and we do not forget. The massive human warship turned smoothly, its engines glowing bright blue. Within seconds, it had jumped to faster than light speed and vanished. Leaving the council patrol ship alone, Kel Ricks sat in his command chair, shaking. He had served in the council fleet for 40 years. He had seen the great ships of the Valorian Empire, the oldest and most powerful species in the council. The human ship he just encountered was more advanced than anything the Valorians possessed. When his ship returned to council space 3 weeks later, Kelrick made his report. At first, the council members did not believe him. Humans with advanced technology? Impossible. They had been primitive, barely space-worthy when exiled, but Kelrick had sensor recordings. He had the communication logs. The evidence could not be denied. The council convened an emergency session. Taiho watched the broadcast from his office on New Geneva, the capital world of the Terran Coalition. Hannah stood beside him. She was old now too, kept alive by the same life extension technology that preserved Minho. They are terrified, Hannah said, watching the council members argue on screen. Good, Taiho replied. Fear will make them cautious. Caution will give us time. Time for what? to finish our preparations. We have 500 star systems now, 15,000 warships, 100 billion people. But we can do better. We must do better. On the screen, the purple crystal being that had led the council a century ago still held power. It called for order. We must send an expedition, it announced. We must see for ourselves what the humans have built. Then we will decide what to do. The vote was unanimous. Within a month, a council exploration fleet set out for the dark frontier. They brought their best ships, their finest diplomats, their most skilled scientists. What they found shocked them beyond words. The first human world they approached was Horizon, home to the Naval Academy. As their ships entered orbit, they detected over 100 defensive satellites, each armed with weapons more powerful than anything on their vessels. A fleet of 20 warships appeared within minutes, surrounding them. "This is just one world," the council expedition leader whispered. "They said they have 500. They were allowed to land and meet with human officials. Soman, now Minister of Foreign Affairs, greeted them formally. "Welcome to the Terran Coalition," she said. Her smile was polite but cold. "I hope you find your stay educational." The council representatives toured factories that produced ships at a rate they could not match. They saw academies training pilots by the thousands. They watched military exercises, where human forces demonstrated tactics and technology, far beyond council capabilities. The head of the expedition was a Valorian named Kresh. He had lived for 3,000 years and thought he had seen everything. But this shook him to his core. How? He asked Soman, "How did you accomplish so much in 1 century?" "You exiled us," Soman said simply. "You took away our future in council space. So we built a better future out here. We had to be self-sufficient. We had to innovate. We could not rely on anyone else, so we relied on ourselves." Kresh felt shame, something he had not experienced in centuries. The council made a mistake. "Yes," Soman agreed. "You did. The question now is what you will do about it." The expedition returned to council space with their report. The recordings they brought caused panic. Emergency sessions were called. Arguments erupted. Some species wanted to make peace with humanity. Others wanted war. To crush this threat before it grew stronger, Taeho received the reports from his intelligence network. He called a meeting of his top military commanders. Wonho and Junho were there, along with dozens of others. "The council is divided," Taeho told them. "Some want peace. Others want war. We must prepare for both possibilities. If they choose war, we will win," Wonho said confidently. "I know," Taeho replied. "But victory is not enough. We must win so decisively that they never threaten us again. And we must do it in a way that shows we are not the monsters they called us." The decision was coming. Humanity had built its empire. Soon, the galaxy would have to accept what they had become. The message arrived on every human world simultaneously. The Galactic Council demanded that the Terran Coalition immediately dismantle its military fleet, submit to Council inspections, and accept Council governance over all human territories. They gave humanity 30 days to comply. President Taeho read the demand in his office. Soman stood beside him, her face angry. "They dare to make demands?" she said. "After what they did to us?" "They fear us," Taeho replied calmly. "Fear makes people stupid. They think if they threaten us hard enough, we will submit like we did a century ago. What will you tell them?" Taeho smiled. No. His response was simple and direct. One word sent across space to the council chambers. Within hours, the council declared war. The Valorian Empire, oldest and strongest of the council species, took command. They assembled the largest fleet in recorded history. 50,000 warships from 100 different species gathered at the edge of council space. News broadcasts across the galaxy called it the Grand Fleet, unstoppable and magnificent. Fleet Admiral Junho watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. He stood in the command center of the Terran flagship Indomitable, surrounded by his senior officers. "They outnumber us 5-1, one officer said nervously. "Numbers mean nothing," Junho replied. "They are slow, predictable, using outdated tactics and ancient technology. We are faster, smarter, and we fight as one." He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Junho. Execute Anvil strategy. Let them come deep. Let them think they are winning. Then we close the trap." The Terran fleet appeared to retreat as the Council forces advanced. The Council admirals celebrated, thinking the humans were fleeing in fear. They pushed deeper into Terran space, spreading their fleet across multiple systems to conquer as much territory as possible. It was exactly what Junho wanted. Commander Nari sat in the cockpit of her fighter, leading Strike Squadron 7. She was 30 years old now, a veteran of dozens of combat exercises. But this was her first real battle. "All fighters stand by," her comm system crackled. "Wait for the signal." The Council fleet had split into 3 groups, each one entering a different star system. Nari's squadron waited in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, hidden among the rocks. Their ships powered down to avoid detection. Through her canopy, she could see the Council ships entering the system. Hundreds of them, massive and slow, confident in their power. "Signal received," her tactical officer said. "Execute attack pattern Omega." Nari powered up her fighter. Around her, 200 other fighters did the same. They burst from hiding, engines screaming, weapons hot, but they were not alone. From the other side of the system, Terran warships appeared. From above and below, more ships jumped in. The Council fleet suddenly found itself surrounded. "All fighters, engage," Nari shouted. Her squadron swept down on the Council ships like hawks on prey. The Council ships tried to defend themselves, but they were too slow. Nari's fighter dodged their weapons easily, returning fire with precision. Her missiles found their targets, punching through shields that had not been updated in thousands of years. Around her, the battle exploded into chaos. The Council ships were built for show and comfort, designed when they had no enemies. The Terran ships were built for war, every system optimized for combat. It was not a fair fight. In the command center of the Council flagship, the Valorian Admiral Kresh watched his fleet die. Explosions lit up space as ship after ship fell to human weapons. The tactics the humans used were unlike anything in Council military doctrine. Drone swarms attacked in perfect coordination, controlled by artificial intelligence. Gravity well generators trapped his ships, preventing escape. Kinetic bombardment rained down. Simple asteroids accelerated to relativistic speeds, hitting with the force of nuclear weapons. "Retreat," Kresh ordered. "All ships, retreat to Council space." But retreating was not easy. The human ships were faster. They pursued, cutting off escape routes, destroying ships that fell behind. The Battle of Titan's Gate, as it would later be called, lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 40,000 Council ships had been destroyed. Only 10,000 escaped back to Council space. The human fleet lost less than 100 ships, but Junho did not stop there. "All ships pursue. We take the fight to them." General Wanho led the ground forces. While the space battle raged, he prepared for planetary invasions. But not to conquer, to liberate. The Council had conquered 3 worlds near the border, species that had been forced into the Council centuries ago. Wanho's troops landed on these worlds and drove the Council occupation forces away. On the planet Dalmer, the local population came out of their homes to watch human soldiers march through the streets. They expected new conquerors. Instead, Wanho addressed them directly. "We are not here to rule you," he said through translators. We are here to free you from those who would. You have the right to choose your own path. Join us, join the council, or stand alone. The choice is yours. The people of Delmar stared in disbelief. No conqueror in history had offered such terms. The Terran counteroffensive pushed deep into council space. G1's quantum communication network allowed perfect coordination across entire sectors. Every ship knew where every other ship was, what it was doing, what it needed. The council forces, still using old communication methods with time delays, could not match this. System after system fell to human control. But the humans did not occupy them. They did not install governors or demand tribute. They simply removed the council forces and moved on. After 2 months of devastating losses, the council leadership met in emergency session. They had lost 15 core worlds. Their fleet was shattered. The economy was collapsing as trade routes fell apart. The purple crystal being who had exiled humanity so long ago stood before the council one last time. We have lost, it said simply. We cannot win this war. The humans are too strong, too advanced, too unified. We must sue for peace. But they were primitives. Someone shouted. How did this happen? We exiled them, the crystal being replied. We forced them to become self-sufficient. We gave them 100 years to prepare without interference. And they used every single day to grow stronger. This defeat is not their doing. It is ours. The vote to request peace talks was unanimous. Taeho received the council's surrender request in his office. Soman stood beside him, along with the elderly Minho, who had lived to see this day. They want peace, Soman said. Unconditional surrender. Taeho nodded slowly. Call Admiral Junho. Tell him to cease offensive operations, but maintain defensive positions. We will negotiate, but we will not be foolish. Minho smiled, his old face creasing with satisfaction. I told them we would remember. I told them they would regret what they did. They have learned, Taeho said. Now we must show them we are not the monsters they feared. We must show them we can be merciful in victory. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the real challenge was just beginning. How would they build a peace that would last? How would they forge a new galaxy from the ashes of the old? The answers would come soon. The Treaty of New Geneva was about to begin. The Great Hall of New Geneva was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Humans sat beside Valorians, who sat beside the crystalline beings of the Old Council, who sat beside 100 other species. The war was over. Now came the harder task of building peace. Selman stood at the podium, addressing the assembled delegates. She had been elected Empress of the Terran Imperium, the first to hold the title. But she insisted it was a title earned through the will of the people, not taken by force. The Galactic Council is dissolved, she announced. It failed in its purpose. It became corrupt, stagnant, afraid of change. We will not make the same mistakes. She activated a holographic display showing a new structure. I present the Galactic Federation. Every member species has equal representation. Every voice will be heard. Decisions will be made by majority vote, not by the winds of ancient empires. The Valorian representative stood. Kresh, the admiral who had led the failed invasion, now served as his people's diplomat. He looked humbled, a far cry from the arrogant commander who had thought humans would be easy to defeat. The Valorian Empire accepts these terms, he said. We recognize the Terran Imperium as the dominant military power in the galaxy. We pledge to work with humanity and all species toward a better future. One by one, the other species agreed. They had little choice. The human fleet was the strongest in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. But Selman had been careful to offer fair terms, to show that humanity sought cooperation, not domination. The Treaty of New Geneva was signed that day by all present. The Galactic Federation was born. Minji walked through the halls of the new Terran Institute of Technology. She served as the Empress's chief science advisor, a role she took seriously. The Institute was her creation, a place where humans could share knowledge with other species. In one classroom, a human professor taught Valorian students about quantum mechanics. In another, a crystalline being explained ancient mathematics to human children. Knowledge flowed freely in both directions. This is what the council never understood, Minji said to a visiting journalist. Progress comes from sharing ideas, from combining different perspectives. The council hoarded knowledge, kept species separate. We are building something better. The journalist, a small furry creature from a species recently liberated by human forces, nodded enthusiastically. My people had no schools under council rule. Now our children learn alongside humans. It is wonderful. Minji smiled. That is the future we are building. Not human dominance, but human partnership. Admiral Nari stood on the bridge of the Federation peacekeeping fleet flagship. She had been promoted rapidly after the war, her skill in battle recognized and rewarded. Now she commanded a fleet of 500 ships, drawn from 20 different species, all working together to maintain peace across the galaxy. Her second in command was Kresh's grandson, a young Valorian eager to prove himself. Her tactical officer was from the crystalline species. Her engineering chief was human. They worked together seamlessly. Admiral, we are receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim, her communications officer reported. Pirates are attacking a merchant convoy. Set course and engage at maximum speed, Nari ordered. The fleet moved as one, jumping to faster-than-light travel. They arrived within hours, catching the pirates by surprise. The battle was short. The pirates fled, their outdated ships no match for Federation technology. Well done, Nari told her crew. Escort the merchants to safety, then we return to patrol. This was her job now. Not conquest, but protection. The Federation peacekeeping fleet ensured that no one could threaten the peace, that no species could oppress another. It was a job she was proud to do. On the planet Horizon, the Naval Academy had expanded dramatically. Cadets from 50 species trained together, learning the same tactics, the same values, the same commitment to peace. A young human cadet named Jinho stood in the simulator, running through a combat exercise. He was the grandson of the legendary Admiral Minho, who had died peacefully 5 years earlier at the age of 150. Jinho felt the weight of that legacy every day. Focus, cadet, his instructor said. The instructor was a Valorian, one of the first to train in human methods. You are thinking too much about your grandfather. Think about the mission. Jinho nodded and completed the exercise flawlessly. When he climbed out of the simulator, the instructor smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. Not because of your name, but because of your skill. Remember that. That evening, Jinho looked up at the stars from the academy grounds. Somewhere out there, his grandfather had fought to protect humanity when they were weak and exiled. Now Jinho trained to protect the peace his grandfather had helped create. The motto of the Terran, Imperium, was carved in stone above the academy entrance. Per aspera ad astra. Through hardship to the stars. In the old council chambers, now converted into a museum, elderly Hannah led a tour group. She was 140 years old, kept alive by medical technology that was now shared freely with all Federation species. Her mind was still sharp, her memory clear. This is where they exiled us, she told the group, pointing to the spot where Admiral Minho had stood. Right here. They told us we were not good enough. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. A young student raised her hand. She was from a species that had joined the Federation after the war. Were they wrong? Hannah laughed. They were right that we are dangerous. Dangerous to tyranny, dangerous to stagnation, dangerous to those who would oppress others. But they were wrong that this was a bad thing. She led them to another exhibit, showing the rapid growth of human technology during the exile years. They tried to break us. Instead, they forced us to become stronger. We had no one to rely on but ourselves, so we learned to rely on ourselves completely. The tour ended at a memorial wall, listing all the humans who had died building the new colonies, who had sacrificed to make the Terran Imperium possible. Thousands of names covered the wall. "Remember them?" Hana said softly. "They gave everything so we could have this future. Never forget what they endured." Empress Somin stood in her office, looking out at the city of New Geneva below. It was the capital of an empire spanning 2,000 star systems, home to over 300 billion souls of 100 different species. She thought about the journey that had brought humanity here. From exile to empire, from outcasts to leaders. It had taken 120 years of hard work, innovation, and sacrifice. A message appeared on her desk display. It was from the Outer Rim territories, species asking to join the Federation. More wanted to be part of what humanity had built, but Somin knew the work was not finished. It would never be finished. Peace was not a destination, but a journey. Every day brought new challenges, new threats, new opportunities. She thought about Admiral Minho, who had stood alone before the council and refused to bow. She thought about Captain Taiho, who had led the evacuations with dignity. She thought about all the humans who had turned exile into opportunity. They had proven something important. That being cast out was not the end. That hardship could forge strength. That a species determined to survive would not just survive, but thrive. The galaxy had tried to exile humanity into darkness. Humanity had lit up that darkness with the light of progress, innovation, and hope. Now that light spread across the stars, shared freely with all who wished to join them. Somin returned to her work. There were trade agreements to review, diplomatic meetings to attend, decisions to make that would affect billions of lives. The weight of leadership was heavy, but humanity had carried heavier burdens before. They had carried the burden of exile. They had carried the burden of survival. Now they carried the burden of leadership with the same determination that had brought them this far. In classrooms across the galaxy, children of 100 species learned human language and human history alongside their own. They learned about the exile, about the long journey, about the war and the peace that followed. They learned that strength came not from domination but from unity. The Terran Imperium had become the heart of the Galactic Federation. Not through conquest, but through example. Not through fear, but through hope. The Council had exiled humanity, thinking they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. Instead, they had created exactly what the galaxy needed. A species that knew hardship, that understood struggle, that had learned to turn every obstacle into an opportunity. Humanity had been exiled by the Galactic Council. In response, humanity had built a mighty empire. And then, in their greatest achievement, they had shared that empire with everyone who wished to join them. The stars shone bright over New Geneva that night, as they shone over thousands of worlds across the galaxy. And humanity, once exiled and alone, now stood at the center of it all, not as conquerors, but as partners in building a better future for all. Per aspera ad astra. Through hardship to the stars. The journey was not over. It was only beginning.